Project is a fairly large project. It has 142 rows. Every row has 288 segments. I had to break it into 3 sections because of 2 things. One is the size and height, and then the other reason is Segment Pro, which I design, and it has a theoretical limit of 20,000 pieces, but I find about 18,500 is about upper for me. So I made it into a bottom section, a mid section, which is feature ring, I call, and then the top section. With that, then I physically made the 3 sections, and we'll go through in this video, show you how I did that. So once we have the plan complete, then we figured out how much wood to cut. Then I start cutting it on the table saw. For this project, I used a table saw to cut the strips, but you can also use the band saw to cut the strips. With the band saw, I always leave a little extra width there to sand down. So when I sand the strips down, I usually leave a little extra for when we get it glued onto each ring, because when you turn that down, sand it down a little bit. So I'm finding about 1/100 of an inch is best to have an extra 1/100 of an inch. Now we're going to start gluing the strips that we cut and sanded, and I just put a little glue at the end and then get them clamped nice and square so you don't lose any wood. Cutting for me is the area that I have to work hardest at. A lot of factors that make up the SEL side. How hard are you pushing the wood against the stop? What kind of blade? Are you pushing the same speed? Do you have the same kind of wood? Do you have vibration dampeners? There's more to the list, but you gotta do what you can to mitigate all the steps that make it accurate or not. Okay, so this is row 3. The SEL here is 0.093 and the diameter is 8.5. After this row, then it starts getting bigger pieces. So for this row 3, I'm gluing every 3rd piece, and later on I'll be doing every 4th. Here I'm filling in the empty holes. There's 3 spots, 3 segments in between each one. And it doesn't always work the first slot I try. I'll work it at the next slot to find it to fit right. All the pieces filled in, then I gotta glue them in. So now, because you have support on both sides of them 3 segments, you can push harder than you would normally push. Don't worry about breaking. Here I'm showing how I clamp it, but to be honest, I don't clamp very often. Cleaning the glue out after you get them all glued down is very important. You gotta get rid of all the cracks there, otherwise you can't push your pieces down and get a nice good connection. It's very important to make sure every row is flat that you're starting with. So you'll see the routine here. I'll turn, I'll put 2 pencil marks, sand. If one of the pencil marks goes away right away, you have to turn that side down a little bit until you get to the point where you sand and both lines go out pretty quickly at the same time. Bottom section now is done, so I can start the featuring next. Okay, so now we're starting the featuring. One thing I forgot to do before I started is to flatten the plywood. I have 2 layers of 3/4 inch plywood there. I should have flattened on the lathe first, so I had to do it after I figured that out. So what I'm showing here is for the featuring, because there's a pattern there, what I lay out every 4th piece on the piece of wood, and then I just take it one at a time from that piece of wood. So I don't have to look at the pattern every time. I put a piece down, so that just is a time saver. So with the featuring, it's not exactly a cylinder, but it's fairly close to a cylinder. So I can clamp from the bottom all the way up, and just makes a tighter joint that way. Now I got the feature ring somewhat finished as far as turning the wall thickness, and I'm checking against the bottom to make sure the bottom and the feature ring have the same wall thicknesses and the same outside diameter and inside diameter. So now we're starting the top section. I actually am making the top section starting from the top so it's upside down, just to make it easier for turning later. this project, I made sure that the 3 sections ended up in a solid color, such as Babinga on Babinga. So when I glued the sections together, you can't see the alignment mistakes as much. I made it pretty good, but it's hard to get it all perfect, so that's why I did that. When I'm getting down to the end, I did a lot of checking measurements. I'll cut in a little bit, make sure I'm not all the way through. Sure didn't want to see that break at the very end of this.